This video is just going to be another one of my mini reviews. I just recently repaired this stereo cassette recorder. I couldn't get it all the way repaired, and I'm going to explain that in a second. Anyway, this recorder, it came out in 1982, and it cost around $240, which I guess back in that day was not probably top of the line. Might have been middle class or something like that. Anyway, this thing is surprisingly small. It's only about 18 inches wide, which is about, say, 46 centimeters wide, and it's not very, I don't even think it's 30 centimeters or a foot tall, and it definitely weighs under 10 pounds. I mean, it's a lot smaller than a Sharp GF9191, which I have to add, I like those units better than this unit, even though this does have a nice industrial, still has a nice industrial look to it. It's not like in a few years later when they came out like with all the all black ugly looking plastic units. It's still, actually it's a pretty stylish unit with the combination silver here and the chrome. Somewhat, yes, I would say it's somewhat industrial. And here it has 2 speakers per channel, and I measured the woofer. It's about 4.5 inches in diameter. That's about 12 centimeters, and little tweeters, which are they're around 4 centimeters, maybe 1.5 inches. Of course, they're right up behind there. And this particular model here, I can go through the features real quick. Let me go ahead and get some more light up in here, because if I turn the light up, then you won't be able to see the LED feature, which comes on when you're using the cassette. Basically, it basically just tells you that the cassette is working. I don't has no other purpose than that. And of course, there's another one over here. It's a little triangular LED setup. So I shut off the cassette player now, since it is kind of noisy. I mean, after all these years, everything is just kind of a little bit out of whack. Here this thing also seems to be known as the Boombox DR-01. That must be an alternate model name. Anyways, here you got your phones, you got your tone control, which again, in comparison to the last boombox I worked on, the Sharp GF9191, that has separate bass and treble controls, which is better. And it's also got separate, has separate volume control for each channel, which is better too. This is just a single knob. I believe it even had, I think it was separate record too. You can control the record input. And here you've got your mono, stereo wide, which is another little gimmick. And you can take 3 kinds of tapes, which would be normal, chrome, and metal. And supposedly the frequency response with metal is from 80 hertz to 12 kilohertz. That is from 80 to 12,000 hertz, which, well, it's not that hot. It's got aux, radio, and tape. That's the one thing I do like about this unit. It has an aux input. You can go ahead and use one of these, use your phone or a MP3 player and get one of these. Let me get this thing here. Okay, I had to shut the camera off. Of course, when I was looking, I could not find the cable. So one of these things, and of course this part here just plugs into your phone, and this goes into the RCA jacks in the back. It's basically that simple. Moving on here, this one has FM 2 shortwave bands and AM band. You've got fine tuning control here, and of course you got your master tuning knob. And this down here, you can cycle the auto reverse, which in my unit doesn't work. And the manual here, I still haven't figured that out yet. Maybe, I don't know if that's a manual to reverse. You can reverse manual, probably is. Got your regular piano key type of controls. In order to make it go one way, you hit play, and then over here you hit basically play 2. Okay, what this thing doesn't have now is, I notice it does not have a light. Some units have a light which you used to be able to, if you had it next to your bed and it was in the dark, you could put the light on, you'd know what channel you were on. But not this unit. This is not like that. I think it's, well, nobody does that anyways. Also, it has one single telescoping antenna. Like the Sharp, as a comparison again, it says 2 telescoping antennas. And it's got the Cape counter. So here we got the back. We got mic mixing, aux. Here's that aux input, what you're talking about, which is pretty swift. And the line out, for some crazy reason you decided to hook this up to a stereo set, and you took the signal off of here. And here, this is the external speaker outputs. So I also have to mention, because I had mentioned earlier the small woofer and the small treble speaker. This is not going to put out that much. You can't expect like big party bass. This thing uses what's called a Toshiba TA7229, and what that is it's an IC. It's a 20-pin dual channel audio power amp. It's basically this thing uses one IC for both channels. Also, before I forget, since I do these videos basically off the top of my head, this does not have an external DC jack, which means you can't hook it up to say a car battery or whatever. You're either going to have to go with the batteries that are, I think it takes like 6 or 8 1.5 volt batteries. Look like they're about D-size batteries that goes in there. I didn't even look because I don't use setup like that. And lest I forget, I need to point out there are also 2 built-in microphones. One thing I do notice here, if I just pan across, there's no VU meters whatsoever, so you have to be prepared for that. Now when you get one of these things, what do you have to look for? Of course, you got to make sure the exterior is in good shape. You got to make sure your tuning knob turns. You don't want the actual cord to be broken. That can happen too. I've seen one of those before. Not on a unit like this, but on a different unit. Somebody, I think, had opened the unit up and tore the cord. And that's going to be a headache to get right again. Of course, you got to make sure your antenna is still holding complete. That's important. Your handle, because if the handle's broke, I've seen that before too, that's going to be a bummer. You got to make sure that the head, when you open this thing up, that the head itself is, you can see it'll be nice and shiny, and that the little pinch rollers, that they're not all worn down and rounded off, meaning the unit has had a lot of use then. And also, of course, you got to try out the cassette unit. You're probably going to have to change belts in this unit. Anything else I can think of here? Yeah, the auto reverse. That's if that doesn't work, like in this unit, that's a bummer. I had seen one of these advertised recently where the person said the auto reverse didn't work, and you might think, oh, it just needs some lubrication, that's it. No, there's actually a little how would I call it? I would call it like a gear on a pivot down there, which swings. It swings back and forth depending upon which direction you're going. If you're going normal direction or you're reversing, and that swings all the time. That swings around, and that has this thing has a crack in it. It's basically broken. So with my unit here, it swings good to one side. On the other side, not that good. So it gets stuck part way. So you really have to watch out for that, because these parts aren't made anymore. And if that's important to you, I mean, like this unit here, it still works without the auto reverse function. There's nothing I can do about that unless, say, I had to get another donor unit and then, you know, take it out of there, put it on there. And even that would be, if you look at the setup in here, even that's not going to be a 5-minute job. I can already tell straight off the bat. So if you're not used to doing this kind of stuff, that might end up being a headache, removing the removing that piece down in there. So I think that basically, can I think of anything else? No, that about sums it up. Now we get out to we'll go over to the power output test, and that will conclude the video. Now here's my power output test. What I'm doing basically is I'm feeding in a signal here from this combination audio generator and distortion measurement unit. And what I'm doing is I'm feeding a 1000 hertz sine wave into both channels, into the aux input, and I've got my volume turned all the way up, and I actually adjust the input by adjusting the amplitude of what's coming out of that generator. And here you can see this is what I'm actually getting. This is the peak to peak value, and it's right here. It's like 1, 2. I've got the scope at 2 volts per division. It's about somewhere around 8 volts peak to peak per channel. And if we come over here, here's your level. You can see here it's putting out about 2.7 volts RMS, and that's at about, here's the distortion, is, let me see, that is the 1% scale, so it's right under 0.4% distortion right there. And here's what we actually get. We get 2.7 volts RMS, I believe it was. Then we times that by itself, which gives us 7.29. Then we divide that by 8 ohm load, and we have 0.9 watts per channel RMS. That's it. I think when I looked at the service manual, it said something like I think it was 4 watts, almost 4 watts per channel at 10% distortion, but those are really figures you really can't do anything with. So that here is the bottom line, and of course the power supply here is okay. So, and my line voltage is okay too. So it's 0.9 watts per channel. That's into 8 ohms, both channels driven at the same time. Now if I increase the amplitude of the output signal here from the audio generator, you can see right here what's going to happen right here. It's really, I don't know if that can be seen, it's breaking up really, starting to breaking up really bad. Yeah, I think that can be, now it can be seen right there, so I better turn this thing down. I want to stay in the safe zone. So to conclude this video, I'm just going to let this thing run for about 5 seconds here, and of course you have to remember that I'm actually recording through a microphone it's a built-in microphone in my camera, so it's not like you're in the room with me. Let me just turn it on for a couple seconds and that will conclude the video.